Okay, we are back. An impromptu edition of the Miami Marlins Hot Stove Show with Stephen Strom and Kyle Sielaff. I have called into the NFL League office, Stephen. We are doing this live at 2 o'clock. I have stopped the games, okay? We have news we need to get to here in Miami. I have stopped the games league-wide.
Good.
Because we've got a lot of news to discuss here. Okay, good to be back with you. I do know that our intention was to let it rest, let it breathe here for the holidays. We were going to join everybody after the new year. Obviously, circumstances change. We try to be flexible ourselves. And obviously, we felt, Stephen, as if this morning's news would warrant a conversation between you and I and maybe provide some context. And really, more than anything, I want people to understand, provide our thoughts. This is kind of my platform as well as yours, and ours is Marlins Radio, to provide our unfiltered thoughts as fans. So I'm looking forward to that. And obviously, we're hopping on here to discuss the news that has sent Jesus Luzardo to the Philadelphia Phillies in a trade this morning for top 100 prospect shortstop Starlyn Caba, in addition to a 21-year-old center fielder, Emaarion Boyd. So, Stephen, we have a lot we can get into here. I do simply want to just let you talk here for a minute. We will hear from Peter Bendix. We've got footage of these two young men that we're going to share as we kind of talk about them. But please, the floor is yours. Obviously, we're here in an impromptu manner this afternoon.
Yeah, this was supposed to be our last show, right? Our last show of 2024, but we ain't leaving yet. And we felt like this was the right time to come on. It's the beauty and luxury of what we're doing here. We can jump on. Now, I think I want to hear from Peter first, and then I want to share. I talked to an individual from the Philadelphia Phillies organization. I do want to share some of their thoughts on these two prospects that the Marlins have acquired for Jesus Luzardo. And really quickly on Luzardo, I think we both can agree. Again, another great guy, right? Another great guy off the field, always gave us the time of day. He had an incredible 2023 with 32 starts, won 10 games, a 3.52 ERA, 178 innings. But this year, obviously, struggled with the injuries. And, you know, it is what it is about Luzardo. He has not stayed healthy, you know, throughout his career. And that is no fault other than anything that happened. It's just baseball sometimes.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know, his 2023 was incredible. Peter Bendix will speak on why he felt like this was the right time. But all in all, just to, you know, thank Jesus Luzardo, what he has done. But super excited about the prospects, and we'll dive deeper into them.
Yeah, they're a ways away, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to provide and try to provide some context to all of and everything that happened today. First, let's hear from Peter.
You know, we heard Luzardo's name the last two offseason trade rumors. Why was this the trade package that you guys thought was the right one?
Yeah, we're really excited about the players that we got in return. I think Starlyn Caba is the main piece here. I think he's got a chance to be a superstar. He just turned 19. He's walked more than he's struck out in 500 career plate appearances. He's extremely athletic, excellent tools, really good shortstop, great makeup, great bat-to-ball skills, great swing decisions. It's really the whole package of what you're looking for in a prospect. And so that was too good to pass up. Emaarion Boyd is also he's not to the level of Caba, but he's somebody we like a lot. He's really fast. He's a good outfielder. He's stolen 80-plus bases over the last 2 years. He's got contact ability. He's only 21 years old. There's a lot of speed, athleticism, defense that leads to a high floor. And we think that these are two premium athletes, two excellent prospects. And ultimately, they add to what we think is an excellent farm system and something that we just couldn't walk by for Luzardo.
You mentioned that it was the right time with the guys that you are receiving, especially with Caba. But why is it the right time to move Luzardo, knowing how obviously he had the injuries last year, but how valuable he's been to the ball club since he got here?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I think it really does come down to the players that we're getting in return being guys that we just feel very strongly about. We think that they're really high-end pieces that are hard to acquire, and they can help us be good for a long time. And that was really the impetus behind the trade.
Okay, partner. So that was Marlins President of Baseball Operations, Peter Bendix, on the move here today. I don't know if I'm working backwards here, Stephen, but I do want to start because you mentioned Jesus Luzardo before we heard from Peter, and I'm not trying to rationalize the move, but I'm trying to think about it in a logical manner. If I go back to when Jesus Luzardo was acquired by the Marlins in 2021, since then, and you mentioned this, but I do think it's important to chat about it. In 2022, he had a left forearm strain that kept him out for a substantial period of time. He had a wonderful 2023, but going into 2024, remember, in late April, he was placed on the injured list with left elbow tightness. Now, it wasn't long after that. He did come back from that in that 15-day window for the most part, okay? And then towards the end of the season, he had the lumbar stress reaction. That's kind of a condition when the bone in the lower back, it starts to weaken due to a lot of stress, okay? It hasn't yet fractured, but I say that because this is a guy going into year 2 of arbitration who made $5.5 million last year. It's easy to suspect he'd make maybe $500,000 more this year. Let's say he's a $6 million player for the Miami Marlins, a year away from free agency, with 2 prior elbow injuries. And a stress fracture in his back. Where the Marlins are at right now, I do not fault him for making this move. I understand he's a fan favorite, but to me, this is a very, very wise baseball move because, and by the way, one other point, if you don't mind, go back about 10 years ago. Jesus Luzardo had Tommy John surgery prior to being drafted by the Washington Nationals, traded to the Oakland A's. I'm not a doctor, but I do know those things don't last forever. So we're talking 2 elbow issues, a back issue, and the warranty is expired on his elbow. He's an amazing human being. He's a great pitcher. If he stays healthy, he gives the Phillies a better chance today than they had yesterday of winning the World Series in 2025. Personal opinion, I think it's a very smart baseball move by Peter Bendix, given where the organization is at right now.
Yeah, these are always tough conversations because you grow close to a guy in Jesus Luzardo like we both have, and we wish him the best of luck. But these are just the hard reality facts of, someone that has obviously struggled with just staying on the mound. And I want to pivot away from it because I think you hit it. There's nothing more to say, Kyle. I think this also speaks on Peter's belief in the depth of the arms and seeing what they have. What do they have with Adam Mazur? What do they have with a potential, even Robbie Snelling? I don't expect him to be on the team this year, but there's a lot of arms, young arms in this system that I think Peter is ready to hoist up. I mean, even a guy like Max Meyer. We saw a taste of Max Meyer in the beginning of the year, and he was dominant. And then obviously adjustments are made. He got sent down and came back up and struggled, right? So I think this also speaks on, we talk about the direction of the franchise. They want to figure out who's here to stay when they eventually say, we're ready to make a run here. And what they have done, and we can get into the prospects now, is they have overloaded this system. I think it's now 25 plus prospects since trading Arise and Berger and Puck and Scott and De La Cruz. And oh, by the way, this isn't to knock these guys, Kyle, but Brian De La Cruz just signed a minor league contract with the Atlanta Braves. Brian De La Cruz was a starting left center in left field last year, right? So what does that tell you about what Peter has done with some of these guys? And we love Brian De La Cruz, right? But I think what you're seeing is after these trades, the result of, okay, where are these guys that the Marlins trade away? Where are they now, right? And we don't have to get into further after that. Now, go ahead.
Yes, totally agree on all of that. And
am I being too hard?
What's that?
Am I being too hard?
No, I don't think so. Again, I think you make a very valid point with Brian De La Cruz, who we all came to love and enjoy watching him play. But there were 30 teams to start the free agency period that weren't dying to sign Brian De La Cruz to a multi-year deal. I think he's a very good player. I think he can help a very good team. He's not a right fit for the Marlins right now. Anyway, not chatting about Brian De La Cruz, but I think you make a very salient point. We do have video of Starlyn Caba and Emaarion Boyd. I'll show those in just a minute here when we kind of talk about each individual player. This offseason alone, I do want to start with kind of what we've already seen, and actually a move earlier in the week. We can chat about this when we come back from the break. But the Marlins have signed a player to a major league deal. It is Eric Wagaman Infielder, outfielder, agreed to a 1-year contract earlier in the week. So the expectation, obviously, as that this unproven commodity is obviously a part of the Marlins this season. He was with the Angel system last year, had a very, very small cup of coffee, played in 18 games. So Wagaman is now a part of this. Most importantly, when you talk about Starlyn Caba and Emaarion Boyd today, Caba is a shortstop. Max Acosta, who the Marlins just got from Burt in the Burger deal, is a shortstop. A Chedry Vargas, who was in the Burger deal, is a shortstop. I said Acosta. Who was the other one? I had one more to mention. Oh, then they had the young kid, the pitcher there, the lefty, Brian Mendoza in the Burger deal. Again, it would seem to me as if they're targeting up the middle players here, not just on the infield, but the outfield. You've got the center fielder now who they get today. You've gotten multiple middle infielders, and you're talking about kids that are 21, 19, 22, 21, and 20. Those 5 guys right there that are a part of the Luzardo and Burger deals, not a single one of them over the age of 22. So it would seem as if obviously they're targeting very, very athletic players up the middle. You can very similar to you can never have enough pitching. To me, you can never have enough shortstops. Like if you have a kid that can play shortstop really well, I promise you he can go to second base and play it really well. He can also go play defensively at third. Maybe it's not the right fit profile offensively as a third baseman, but you can work with a shortstop and multiple. Do we want to get into some of these kids here, Steven?
Yeah. Let's get into Caba first.
All right.
Okay. And we can show some of his highlights, but now can I have the floor as far as
please do? Yes.
The individual that I spoke with, and I will drop him. I mean, he's the voice of the Clearwater Threshers, Josh Spurper, and he had told me a couple of things, and we'll start here with Caba. 19-year-old, you had mentioned it, Kyle, shortstop, 81st prospect in the top 100 MLB pipeline. Now, in rookie ball in 2023, he had 300. This year, a drop-off, but he did get promoted, 254 on the year. The big word that we heard from Peter Bendix is superstar. He has the potential to be a superstar. Has Peter Bendix ever said anything remotely close to that to any prospect? That's not a rhetorical question, Kyle. I'm asking you. Has he dropped the superstar word?
Not that I recall, no.
Not that I recall. He has not. He has not mentioned that word ever. Now, does that mean he's going to become a superstar? No. But a lot of these guys, these general managers, these president of baseball operations, they're very careful with what they use, and they're usually on the side of cautionary. When you say something like that, you have to understand probably that this organization is throwing a party, that they got a guy like this in Caba. Now, the other thing I'm also looking at is his glove. We have heard great things about the glove. Josh told me that he's got an MLB glove already. And another thing, too, is there is a profile that the Marlins are bringing in, and it's the short kings. You've got a guy in Caba who is 5'9". You have a guy in Xavier Edwards who's 5'10". Sonoha, Cerna. All these guys are 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". What does that mean? I don't know. But what we asked and what we heard from Peter is they're getting the best baseball players. I know there's this vision of trying to get someone that's 6'2", 200 pounds, and we want someone that's going to broad shoulders. Look at guys like Jose Altuve. I know that's always the comp, but what we're seeing here is a profile that Peter Bendix likes, and it's these short guys that could field, that can run, and all of them can steal bases. They're athletic, and they can play multiple positions. But I think in this case, we'll see Caba at shortstop.
Yes, obviously you would like some of these guys to really grow into their bodies too. They're all very young. I think they have time to mature still. The Ellie De La Cruzes of the world don't grow on trees. I understand that, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does seem as if they've got a bunch of short guys that can play the middle infield. It would seem as if they're lacking in power, but maybe they grow into that. But again, when you're talking about Caba, who is a top 100 prospect, was a top 5 prospect in the Phillies system, glove is big league ready. That's his bread and butter. Offensively, he has no power right now, puts the ball in play, walks more than he strikes out. You'll take that. but he's a really young kid. You're not going to see him for years. In fact, if you look at MLB Pipeline, I think they have his ETA as 2027. And the other kid here, Emaarion Boyd, is 2026. I don't think there's any expectation at all that those guys would be seen or heard from this year. I mean, maybe you hope that by the end of the year, one ends up in high A and the other ends up in double A. I'm not sure. I don't, that's not my expertise here. It's not my field, but seems to be a prudent move. Again, I know we go back to Luzardo. What difference was he going to make on this team as they look to build in the next 2 years? A guy that would cost you $6 million. And this is none of this to me, by the way, and I want to make this point. I should have made it earlier. This deal has nothing to do with dollars and cents in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But to me, this has nothing to do with the $6 million. This has everything to do with what you're projecting and looking to do down the road with this team. And obviously, you've got two very, very good players. Now, the other fella here, Emaarion Boyd, and Peter said earlier, Steven, center fielder and can run like the wind. So I'm looking at this for the first time with everybody else. He's at the plate. Yeah, he's hitting. So he looks a little bit bigger, actually. But again, I just like that these kids are very, very young. And they're kids, man. Like, they're going to grow into their bodies. Now, I don't know if that means they're going to be 30 homer guys. Probably not. But they have a lot of room to grow. But
both had really good years in 2023, by the way, Kyle. Like, they both hit over 300. I know they dropped off this year. We talked about Caba, who hit 254 across two, and he was promoted. He played rookie ball and then was in A ball. This individual in Boyd led off for Clearwater in 2023. And when I talked to Josh Berper, again, the voice of the Clearwater Threshers, he also he feels is crazy athletic, underrated prospect. This is a crazy stat to me. He finished with 5 more strikeouts than stolen bases. He had 56 stolen bases, obviously struck out 60 times. And like you said, Kyle, Bendix looks at him as a center fielder. He'll have every opportunity to do so. But the other thing I think we're starting to see at the front is the Marlins are prioritizing speed. And that's something that they did not have, of course, at the big league level in 2023. That was a huge contentious question. Why don't the Marlins steal more? There's bigger bases. Everyone around the league is running. Why aren't the Marlins running? Well, Miami is really diving into that right now, because almost every prospect that we feel are in returns have stolen bases, have athleticism, and have super speed. So I think that's another interesting thing that we're starting to see the Marlins bolster as they really transition into bringing in as many prospects as possible.
Yeah, and to your point about the stealing in recent years, who was supposed to steal? Was Josh Bell and Jake Berger supposed to get moving? I mean, seriously.
Well, Jacob
Strom wasn't going to steal. Bell wasn't going to steal. Berger wasn't going to steal. You had a bunch of guys. Jesus Sanchez wasn't going to steal. I know they'd like that to be a part of his game. We've chatted about this a lot. This is not going to be a shock to anybody.
Yeah.
But this move, to me today, this is the Rays model, Steven. This is athletic infielders and a bunch of pitchers.
Yeah.
That's how they did it, man. And
I mean, isn't that essentially what Mr. Sherman and company would like to have seen, right? Isn't that kind of why they brought in Peter Bendix? Is we want these guys to just be super athletic, super versatile, and have just this farm system oozing of talent. And I think that's what we're starting to see here. My big thing too, Kyle, and we had talked about this, is, yeah, it's great that they're getting these prospects, but it's exciting to see these guys succeed, like Jared Cerna, Robbie Snelling. Like, Robbie Snelling came to Miami from San Diego in that Tanner Scott trade. He was pitching to like a 7 ERA, and he came to Miami and really hunkered down and had a phenomenal finish to the season. It's great to see these guys not just come here, but succeed and really start to get excited about what they could look like at the next level.
Yes, and I think what's really cool too, I like watching that kid, by the way. This kid can get it. He can hit a little bit, but I can pull out of that. We've discussed this too. We've chatted with so many new folks this offseason. Bright minds, young, fresh ideas. If there are kids that have been traded coming from other organizations, you have bright eyes, bright minds, fresh ideas to help them, to change something. And we even saw that with a lot of those guys that you're talking about last year. There is one other thing I want to make sure I mention, but I do. I want to take a look at the depth chart here, because I think you make a very good point too when you chat about some of these guys. The one other thing, and I don't know, I don't necessarily think it's intentional, but one thing I have seen that they're doing, and I think maybe it's the way the chips have fallen, the players that they have acquired, they're stacking them at each level. Like some of these kids are at AAA now. Some will be at AA. Some are in high A.
Yeah.
Low A.
I know you're going with this.
That sets you up for success down the road. And make no mistake about it. And Peter and his team would say the same thing. Not all these guys are going to pan out. Some of them may suffer catastrophic career-ending injuries. It happens. It's baseball, right? But you have to do these things to give yourself the best chance to succeed. If I look at this,
here we go. Technical Kyle.
What?
No, I just love that you're so comfortable on here. You're pulling up graphics. You're a director. You're a director.
Well,
it's your show.
But when you look at, say, the catching position in AAA, you've got Augustine Ramirez and Joe back. In AA, you've got Ryan Ignafo and Spencer Bramwell. In High A, there's a couple of other guys. At first base, you've got Martorella and Troy Johnson, Zubia and Montgomery in AA. At second base, Vidal Brujan was DFA'd. I know we didn't chat about that. But you've got Josh Zamora down there, Gage Miller, Jordan McCants, and some others. Graham Pauley, Eric Wagaman now.
Yeah.
Yiddy Capé, who was signed years ago in 2021 out of Cuba. Jared Cerna, Max Acosta in AAA. Bashirs, Olmstead, some others in AA. Chedry Vargas.
Let me ask you this, Kyle, as you continue to rattle off these names, and the point is taken here. We had discussed what the Marlins farm system ranked coming into the season, and it was 30th. Okay. What is it going to end up looking like by the start of opening day? What is your projection? Do you think there'll be a top 7 farm system?
Maybe top 10.
Or is that too bullish?
Fair? Is top 10 fair?
And one of the things when I got here in 2023 that you told me that they just didn't have a strong farm system. And, their top prospects, you didn't feel necessarily great about. Where has that, or what feeling has changed, you feel, the last year and a half? I mean, you have to feel a lot.
What?
Just the farm system. I mean, you look at the top prospects. I mean, if I'm
looking at it right now.
You take a look at it, what it looked like last year to now. I mean, it's day and night, right? So again, look, Kyle, I know some people on here are probably here these guys are pushing, these prospects. And look, I think of myself as a baseball guy. I assume you think of yourself as a baseball guy. This is how you got to do it, man. I mean, I'm sorry. This is how you got to do it. I challenge people. Last year's team, and give Peter Bendix credit, because, they came off a postseason appearance in 23, and he said, you know what? I'm not going to do this. He didn't do it. He didn't blow up anything. He added Tim Anderson. He added some pieces and said, okay, let's see where this team is at. And they got off to the rough start. But ultimately, were they going to beat the Atlanta Braves? Were they going to beat the Philadelphia Phillies? And I always challenge people early on, especially, was that team going to beat teams like the Phillies in best of sevens? And the answer was no. With this process,
thinking about right now, they have to be asking themselves, are we going to beat those guys with this team this year? If the answer is no, is now a prudent time to trade Jesus Luzardo, who may, for all intents and purposes, may be a ticking time bomb. Even if he wins us 20 games, does that get us to where we want to go in 2025? Correct. If the answer is no, you have to trade him, which is exactly what they've done. One other thing, and I'm just looking at MLB Pipeline, this is what excites me. Projected Marlins top 30 players to be in the big leagues this year. Augustine Ramirez, Davison De Los Santos, number 4 and 5 on the prospect pipeline. Jared Cerna, number 11. Adam Mazur, number 12. Javier Sanoja, we saw him. He checks in at number 14. Max Acosta, middle infielder. He's number 18. Victor Mesa Jr. is number 19. Dax Fulton, who's had just a rotten history with injuries, is still in the top 30, projected to be in the big leagues this season as well. What did I just say? 6 or 7 guys in the top 30 who we might see in the big leagues this year?
Yep.
We'll see. But again, I don't anticipate they're going to go make any more major league free agent additions, because you have to see if there are legitimately at some point this year 6 to 7 guys in your top 30 that are ready. You need to get a look at it, because when you are in a position where you feel like you can go win the division and compete with the Mets, the Nationals, the Phillies, and the Braves, you need to know what you had in those kids. Were they good enough? Were they not good enough? If they weren't, what do we need to do? We need to go sign a player. We need to trade for somebody. That's that. My only other thought, Steven, as I'm going to call the commissioner, Roger Goodell, here momentarily, let him know games can continue. Yeah. One very important thing to me, and I'm not saying that this is not subject to change. Peter Bendix emphatically said we will always listen to offers. He also said that Sandy Alcantara will be his pitcher on opening day.
Yep.
I do think that's important to note. He made it very clear that he fully expects Sandy to be the Miami Marlins opening day starter in 2025. I would expect that as well. Should that change over the course of the summer, if he is lights out and the market dictates what we saw last All-Star break,
we'll see.
Maybe. So
yeah,
we'll see. I think we've covered it the best we could. Again, we wanted to get on here and just hash out our thoughts. They're kind of unfiltered, probably a little sporadic, but that's just how we feel about it. So,
yeah, I guess I'll end on this, Kyle. And I feel like we always get into this, and I'll make this brief just because we are fans. You are a fan, and I know that fans look at guys like Jake Berger and Jesus Luzardo, and I know they get frustrated. I know that those guys, those are guys that you emotionally, become attached to. But I'm telling you that this group, the Connor Norbies, you'll get attached to. And it's not to take anything away from Jake Berger and Luzardo. I don't know how many times I can tell people that we love them. The way that this is going, the process that we're seeing, I'm telling you, maybe not this year, Kyle, maybe this year, but in years to come, I really do believe that fans are going to look back and say, man, that trade that they made for this guy that I remember, it was tough. Now he's up here and he's killing it. Or maybe it's another guy. But the bottom line is you need to have a strong farm system. So if this doesn't work with an individual this year, that you have someone ready to go, right? Like that is what the Marlins are trying to achieve, and they're doing it. And you said they can bring in 50 prospects and they hope that 10 of them are good. But you know what? It's 10 more than the Marlins would have if they didn't make this move. I get it. I know it's frustrating. But what is the word that Peter Bendix has constantly preached? He wants sustained success. He doesn't want just one 2025, 95 wins. He doesn't want just one 2027. He wants consistent playoffs. Like who, Kyle? What team did you mention? What team did you say it's starting to look like? What team consistently got into the postseason and fans are like, how?
The Rays.
I'm dropping my mic.
They want sustained success. With that is going to come patience. I don't fault people. They've been asked to be patient for many times over with the Marlins, and I totally understand that. I'm sympathetic to that. But this is how they're going to do things, and I do think they have a good plan. And we will wait to see. When it comes to fruition, it's going to be a while, but it's going to require some patience. But I do think they're on the right path. Anything else, Steven?
Is this our last show of 2024?
Unless something happens tomorrow, I'll see you then.
Unless you get traded.
All right. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, an impromptu edition of the Marlins Hot Stove Show. Happy Hanukkah. Did I say that? That's
happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy
fabulous. That's Steve and I'm Kyle. And we'll see you after the break. Happy New Year, folks.